Welcome back. It's Locked On Chiefs here on the Locked On Podcast Network, and we are here on YouTube as well. Welcome. We have a great show for you, one that I'm really interested in because this is the turning point for championship teams. We're going to talk about all the youth on this roster, where they have to play, and what they have to do to produce what will actually help this team on the field. A couple of little pieces that are of interest in terms of free agency, and one number 87. We'll get started there. Welcome to Locked On Chiefs.
It's the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
So youth is an interesting topic, not one that I can say that I understand because I can remember it slightly, but it's not.
I was going to say, impressive you can remember it being over 40
Thanks. Yeah, I can't. I don't have
Sorry.
to shut up. I don't have to take those pills or nothing yet, so I'm doing all right. Folks, we appreciate you being here. If you're on YouTube, make sure you like and sub. And for those of you that are listening on the standard podcast platforms, we appreciate that as well. I know Spotify, Odyssey, they're all growing, so welcome. If you would do us a favor and leave us an iTunes review, let us know what you think. We'd appreciate it, especially if it happens to have 5 stars. Those are my favorites. Couple of interesting things. I don't know where you stand on what 87's name is, but maybe I've been doing this wrong.
I mean, the way I look at it is at least it's like still easy to pronounce. And I mean nothing against the guys that we struggle with from time to time, but Passanio was rough. And I'm just glad we don't do print because that would be very hard.
That would be all you is what that would be.
Well, yeah. And I wouldn't like doing it because I'm sure I would screw it up. So I'm sure when Mr. 87 decides to come out and talk at training camp, it's all going to be a big joke. All the players are having a lot of fun with it on social media. So, he got people talking about him. I think that's kind of what he was wanting and c'est la vie.
Yeah, I mean, that's the way it works, right? He's taking everybody for a ride, but enjoy the ride. It's something fun. I have a tendency to be just like Andy Reid in that I tend to shorten everyone's name regardless. So whether it's Kelce or he's going by Kelce, I thought that was pretty funny. That's the way it's going to end up for a lot of people anyway.
Yeah, and I think that, Kelce or Kelce, I mean, it's not really going to matter. People are going to call him what they call him, and I don't think it's going to change anything this season.
No, but hey, it's like you said, it's a July headline that Travis can put something over on everyone. So good for him. Something that isn't going over very well, and I don't think is going to, is a lot of questions. Folks are concerned about one of the positions we're going to talk about here coming up after the break, where the youth has to perform on this roster, and that is out at the cornerback group. A lot of folks have been interested in trying to bring in a veteran, a guy with a name, and one that I get probably every single day a question about is Richard Sherman. Richard has some questions to answer himself now. I think he is definitely off the table of any possibility he can come into Kansas City.
Yeah, I can't imagine that most teams would actually still be looking at him with all the charges that he has right now. He is not going to be released on bail. He's subject to possible hit and run. I mean, there's a laundry list of different charges. And, we have to be careful because it sounds like his wife has already come out and said nobody was hurt. Nothing really happened. All this is going to go away. Well, most of it may go away, but the hit and run's not going to go away. I don't think the state is going to just say, oh, well, you're bad. Here you can pay some money and it'll just go away. I mean, he may end up having a fine, but I think there's going to be something more to it.
Yeah, I have to agree. And folks, if you don't know what we're talking about, Richard Sherman had a number of charges brought against him here early in the week. I believe it was Tuesday night, a vehicular one, domestic abuse, a number of things. And shout out to the law enforcement in Redmond, Washington, my old high school. Go Mustangs. Looks like the police force had their hands full with this one, ended up bringing in the troopers and everything else. And this is quite a mess. And I won't say that it is something. Not only the Chiefs won't be interested, the league won't be interested. This might be the end of the Richard Sherman career.
I'm not going to go that far, but it definitely could be. I think he was going to be somebody that was going to be signed late in camp for a team. but it really depends on what happens with these Chargers. I mean, the different things that we've heard, and I hate jumping to conclusions about things, but that's kind of what we have to do in this situation since we're talking about it. And it really looks like, besides the hit and run, you also have the domestic violence charge, which obviously his wife has said is probably mainly bogus, but you still have to question that when it comes to domestic violence. How many times do wives say that nothing really happened? And I'm not trying to jump to conclusions here. I don't really know what's going to come of it, but it is being reported by multiple places that he also resisted arrest in some ways. And that's going to be a bigger issue as well. Like the domestic violence, okay, if that goes away because his wife doesn't want to press charges, that's fine. That's a whole other issue, but you're still going to have the, hit and run. You're still going to have the resisting arrest. I can't imagine those are going to just go away.
Yeah. I mean, that's not up to anyone's personal decision to press charges or not. It's going to be difficult. And it leaves the Chiefs with one less option at the corner spot. I think we need to get into...
I don't think he was going to be an option personally, but I get it.
Well, that's exactly where I was going to go. If you'll let me get to the next segment already. Folks, we're going to get deep into what's going on with all the guys that are currently slotted to have a chance to play at that corner position without Richard Sherman, obviously, when we get back from this. And that is me telling you about BetOnline, our pals over there. They are the fastest and easiest way for you to put action on what you want to put action on, whether it's baseball or NBA or NHL, even UFC. That fight the other night must have been a moneymaker for some and really frustrating for the vast majority is my guess. But before you get into the first punch thrown at a UFC match or anything else, make sure that you get the news and the sign-up bonuses and the contest information from betonline.ag. Don't sit on the sidelines. This is your chance to get in the game. Head to the website with your mobile device or your laptop. You get a 50% welcome bonus on what you deposit on your first time when you go there and use the promo code Locked On at betonline.ag. Your online sportsbook experts. That's Locked On as the promo code at betonline.ag. Corner is a critical position. I just think it's more critical to me than it is to Brett Veach, the Chiefs' current GM, my old job. And I just don't understand exactly where it's all going, other than I feel like they are wanting to get very, very young and stay young at this particular position.
I won't say that I think that Veach doesn't value corners. What I will say is I don't think that he thinks that he has to have veterans in that room because of the coaches that he has, and that Andy and Spagnuolo are there as well to help in that regard. So I do think that plays into it as well. I do look at the corner group that Kansas City has. So the other problem with signing a veteran corner is who are you going to release? Because there's no way to sign a vet, at least a high valuable vet at the corner position, unless you're paying him $11-12 million a year. Now, could you have gotten Breland? Yes, but that ship's already passed. And at this point, I have to think that they are trying to go young at that position, because you start looking at how they're going to have to build this roster long term. And with Mahomes making what he's going to make the next several years, although it will be a steal in probably 3 years, for the next couple, it's going to be rough. Mm-hmm. And the Chiefs have to adjust somewhere. And if they adjust at the corner position, that actually has a lot of bang for their buck that they can get back.
It does. I mean, and there's not much farther that they can adjust. I mean, you guys might be out there listening or watching this and saying, well, Ryan, what's the big deal about how young they are? Well, this is how young they are. They are number 4 youngest at the cornerback position in the entire NFL. They are more than a year younger than is average across all 34 teams. The average age right now is 24.3. Sorry, 34 teams? I'm thinking expansion draft next year. Oh, sorry. 32 teams, that is, if I can count. It's 24.3 is their average age, which, again, is 4th youngest in the league. And I think
I would imagine that the teams that are younger than them don't have a player of Snead's capability.
I would bet you're absolutely right. The other teams are, this is interesting, 2 teams that I think struggle in general and have for certainly the last couple of years since the departure of Jalen Ramsey in Jacksonville, and the New York Jets. But the other one is the Green Bay Packers, who I think especially with the argument of Jair Alexander being a top 5 corner, I think that you can see that investing in the youth and the right guy, Snead could be the next Alexander for the Chiefs.
That's true. And so I was wrong on that regard. But, you look at it, in Green Bay is in a situation similar to what Kansas City is going to find itself over the next several seasons, where they're paying their quarterback a buttload of money and they have to adjust somewhere else on the roster. And, we've discussed ad nauseum the Frank Clark situation and what's going to come of that. And I don't really want to get into it other than saying your premium positions for any team are QB, left tackle, defensive end, and corner. And you're going to have to adjust some of those other premium positions if you're going to pay guys like Patrick Mahomes. And honestly, if you're going to pay a guy like Chris Jones, you're paying Chris Jones premium DN money at defensive tackle.
And that's, whether it's DN or D tackle, you have to be producing. And I think that while that position group is a little bit different, the corners in particular, I feel like, are somebody that you can take your bites at the apple, right? Because it's not like you're just going to run 2 defensive ends, right? You need at least 4 corners that can play consistent snaps for you over and over and over. And shout out to Ben Elsner, Mike Tannenbaum, and everybody over at the 33rd team. They ran down all the age groups. And this is the only one, the cornerbacks, that the Chiefs are either in the top 5 oldest or top 5 youngest. Everything else, they're somewhere in the middle of those 22 teams that are left, taking that middle closer to the average. But the quarterback group could have been bolstered, like you said, with Bashaud Breeland earlier, before this nonsense with Sherman, by a number of other veterans that could have come there. They chose not to. They're choosing to put their oldest, I won't say oldest overall, but of the positions that have an older guy, it is at the safety position, not the corner position in the secondary. Tyrann Mathieu, I think, is going to get that extension. So he's going to continue to bring that average up a little bit. But as they go forward, it's definitely a spot where you can see them continuing to have to make investment. And maybe every now and then they'll bring in a veteran to bump that average, but somebody that has a ton of experience that can play, I think, relief snaps. I don't think they're looking for a starter to be an older statesman.
Yeah, and I think the key here is going to be, what does Ward do this season? Because he didn't show up for some of the OTA stuff, and he was there for minicamp, but he wasn't there for OTAs, and that was kind of expected with the contract stuff. So the question is, what is he going to bring? Is he going to bring consistency like he has in the past at times, or is he going to be inconsistent like he has at times? If he is able to play well, he's probably going to price himself out of Kansas City, and then you're looking again next year having to make another big investment in that position. So it is a big question going forward as to how you're going to deal with it.
It's going to be a rotation. It depends how deep they have to rotate, I think. And a lot of it is, like you said, based on Ward and having to go to a second contract. That changes things. Chris Jones is on his own, I think, at this point, with what we know going on and going forward in particular, as you look down the line about who's going to be the older guy, the pass rush designate. But that group's interesting as well. We're going to get to that after the break, after we tell you about our guys that have these things that you want to eat.
Yeah, BillBar.com, and go ahead, Ryan. Show them the. Oh, well, there you go. My favorite flavor. Thank you very much. Oh, and there's the grasshopper cookie as well.
I'm trying.
Bill Bar's version of the classic Thin Mint cookie, all the flavor without all that sugar. That is the grasshopper cookie. 150 calories, 17 grams of protein, and only 5 grams of sugar. Did you know that Built Bar has a lot of delicious flavors? They have 9 original flavors, and they have limited time versions as well. Grasshopper cookie is a limited time version of one of their bars. They have coconut, raspberry, mint brownie, double chocolate, salsa caramel, strawberry, orange, cookies and cream, and German chocolate. If you haven't tried all the flavors, you can get a mixed box where you get 2 of each of the 9 flavors. Not only are Built Bar flavors the best tasting, but they are healthy too. Like I said, 17 to 18 grams of protein, calories ranging from 130 to 180 calories, 4 to 5 grams of sugar, and only 4 to 5 grams of net carbs. Amazing flavors, all tasty, all healthy. Go to Built.com and use promo code LOCKEDON, and you'll get 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCKEDON for 15% off at Built.com.
And that is a website change, folks. Make sure you grab that one.
Yes, it is.
I want to circle back real quick. I know that there's 2 other positions we might have talked about, but the defensive line thing. whatever happens with Frank Clark as a result of these things this season, I think is going to be really up and down as to what happens. But the long-term thing, I think this kind of seals some things in terms of an extension or anything like that. I don't see that coming at this point. So when you look as a pass rusher, you have Chris Jones. That's what you got.
Right.
And so youth everywhere else. I like Jaron Reed. I hope that he can provide the interior pass rush that I think he can, but he's another older guy. I don't know if that's going to be the case going forward after this season.
Right, and I don't expect him back in Kansas City unless you don't bring back somebody else, and unless Reed really wants to be here, and then he gives him a discount and maybe he's back. That's the only way I see him back in Kansas City. I would love to be wrong because I think Reed in this defense is going to be a lot of fun to watch. Really, the guys that you're going to have to focus on, I can't even put Nadi in the young guys column anymore. I guess he technically is because he's still on his original contract, but you start looking at guys like Tershawn Wharton, Colin Saunders, Mike Dana, Kando, all those guys are going to have to play very big roles in this defense at times this season in order for them to be successful.
Yeah, that rotation, and it's not just all of them playing snap. They have to look for somebody to break out. I hope that it's Taco Charlton. I think that he's probably got the best chance to really make an impact, but they need someone to step up.
Healthy.
That is a portion of it, right? And did his offseason change? We haven't heard anything about Taco in particular,
right,
about what he's been doing. A lot of the players are focused on trying to get that bitterness from the last Super Bowl out of their mouths and focused on training. We haven't seen anything from Taco. I hope that he is one of the players that is supremely focused on making this, because if he doesn't make it this season, if he can't solidify his option to be a pass rusher for this team, you can see the end of their career coming.
Yeah. I won't say end of career just because there are so many teams that need pass rush. I think he'll still get another shot somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
But he's not going to be a guy that you're going to really be counting on. He's going to be more like a rotational guy, which is really what he should be for Kansas City, although I think they're going to depend on him more than they would like to because they're just so short at that position right now. I really do think that you start looking at the youth on this team and the positions that they're going to need to get better at, defensive end, and you start talking about the youth at defensive tackle. Those are positions that you're going to have to make sure that the guys that you draft are hitting. Mm-hmm. Even if you're drafting them late, you have to hit. I mean, they don't have to be 15 sack guys. That would be great. Even 10 sack guys would be good. But if they can consistently put pressure on, that's what's important. And if they can maintain their responsibilities and their gaps and their discipline, then that's what's important. They don't have to be getting, 50 sacks a year from the defensive line. I mean, that would be great, but is that reality? Probably not.
I think I'm with you. And I will say this, not only do you have to hit on your draft picks, because we can compare what we have last draft class to this draft class here in a second, but they also pick up every now and then. This scouting staff has been really good about bringing in undrafted free agents that have a penchant to stick. Tershawn Wharton is a guy there that can pay off, again, in this rotation, a guy that wasn't even drafted, that if he can become an actual pass rush that, like, we think that he has the potential to be, that alleviates that much more on the inside. But it's interesting to me that the best player in the draft class last year, by my standards anyway, was inarguably L'Jarius Sneed, the fourth-round selection. That's what they have in Josh Kando this particular year. And while he wasn't productive in college, I don't think anybody would make the argument that he was in any way supremely productive. The Chiefs like what he has. They like his physical tools. This opens the door that he may have a bigger role in the rotation than maybe we originally thought. And if he can perform anywhere close to what Sneed does, there's another example of hitting on your later round draft picks that can really keep you young.
Yeah, and it's at another one of those premium positions where it is going to be extremely important to hit. And honestly, we haven't even talked about, and this is brought up by Nate Taylor talking about the 20 Chiefs that are on their contract years. We even talked about the guy that's going to get paid next year that we really need to. Orlando Brown is going to get paid. Yeah. It's going to be a question as to how much he's going to get paid, and it's going to be based on his season. And the only reason I even bring him up is because he is going, and what he gets paid is going to play a factor into what they can do on the defensive line and other positions, especially when you start talking about the youth that they have to keep, because they're going to have to pay him premium money if they're going to keep him. Yeah. And you know that they're going to keep him, but the question is he going to live up to a Trent Williams type contract, or is it going to be more like a Garrett Bowles type contract?
Wow, that is quite a disparate comparison. And it's interesting that you bring those two guys up. It took, 3 seasons for Bowles to figure it out? And now he's a solid starter, I would say. After 1 season anyway, you could say that. Brown in particular, I feel like this is actually – I think a lot of Chiefs fans were concerned, and a lot of talking heads certainly were about Orlando Brown being, needing a contract like next year. Yes, you could do the tag and that kind of thing. That gets a little bit hairy, but – I think actually it's not a bad spot because I don't expect Orlando Brown to walk into this offense and be what he was in Baltimore, because I think it is going to be a transition for him. The number of pass sets that he's going to have to run, the fact that he's going to have to be not just nasty and aggressive like he is, but he has to be a little bit more athletic. He has to work on his footwork as well. Yep. I think maybe the performance-wise in terms of how much pressure he's able to give up, while I think probably on par or better than what Eric Fisher was able to do, I think will not make it so it has to be a Trent Brown-sized contract.
You mean Trent Williams?
Sorry, Trent Brown too. Trent Brown's size just kind of scares me, so yes.
Yes, I can understand that. And I agree with what you're saying. I do think it's going to be something that we're going to be watching all season long to see how that plays out. So definitely something to keep an eye on. Sorry. I felt it coming and I couldn't help it.
That said, there are a lot of places that they can try to eke out that offensive line, especially with Tooney already under what's going to be a big contract. Staying young just in that position room is going to be helpful with Creed Humphrey, with Trey Smith eventually, I think, becoming a starter. We'll see what happens with Niang. I'm hopeful there as well. But the youth this season is going to be a little bit different from how much they have to put out versus what we've seen the last couple of seasons. So let's make that run for a third Super Bowl with all the young guys. Let us know what you think. Who are you looking most forward to seeing of the guys that are on their first contract?
I have to ask you a question because this is something we got actually asked to talk about on the podcast. This should be really quick. My buddy at Warren Sharp at Sharp Football, I really enjoy reading all of his different tweets, tweeted out today, I love Andy Reid and think he's the best coach in the NFL right now. Interesting note on halftime adjustments. In the first 5 minutes of the third quarter, the KC offense the last 2 years has the largest drop in EPA/play compared to the first half of any team in the NFL. They're number one in EPA the first half, and they are horrible in the starting the second half. That surprise you at all?
I won't say horrible, but no, it does. That is not something that surprises me because the efficiency of not only the first 15 plays script, but the leads that they're able to get out to with Mahomes, I think that this is a symptom of Andy pulling his foot off the gas. And maybe Warren can get through to him. Maybe we see that change because of this. Because if nothing else, the third quarter at least, the first couple of drives, I think you have to continue to come out and keep hitting. And maybe that's what it becomes, is the aggression of Andy Reid to begin the second half, I think needs to come up some.
Yeah, I mean, if you get to a point where you're up, just because you're up 2 scores going in the second half doesn't mean you have the game iced. If you could get to and take the lead to 3 scores or close to 4 scores, that puts a lot of other pressure on the other team, and that gives your defense even more rest, and it gives them the ability to know that the pass is coming and be able to set up for it. So I do agree with you. I think it's a symptom of Andy Reid taking his foot off the gas.
We'll see what happens. Let us know what you think at the Locked On Chiefs on Twitter, on the iTunes reviews. Let us know in there. Hit the comments on the YouTube channel, like and sub over on YouTube, as well as get subscribed on all your podcast platforms. We appreciate you listening to us today. We will be back with you tomorrow, and we'll talk to you then.